money.
Right. The other thing, that we have to contract with an attorney, and I don't think it'd be Rich Roberts. And the reason I say that is I think his expertise is
Hello.
general law. He would probably
How we
refer
doing?
us perhaps.
It's 7 PM, so we'll call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday and all is well with you and your families. First order of business will be the roll call. Mr. Chamorro? Fred?
He's trying to talk, he must be muted.
I think you're muted, Fred.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Fortin?
Present.
Mr. Kelleher?
Here,
Mr. Bernardi is excused. Mr. Bradrick? All right, we see all that. Michelle?
Here.
Pause. Mr. Cutler
Here.
and Mr. Shea.
I'm here.
Okay. Next order of business would be to seat an alternate. We do have an open tonight because Mr. Bernardi has been excused.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the last time we seated an alternate was Mr. Shed. If I remember correctly, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, and since Mr. Bernardi didn't appoint an alternate, I would move that Michelle be the alternate, Mrs. Waz.
We have a second on that?
Come on, somebody. A member.
Roy's got his hand waving. Okay, so we have a second by Mr. Bradrick. Any discussion on that or any further? All right. Mr. Chamorro, how do you vote?
Aye.
Morton,
Aye.
Mr. Kelleher,
aye.
Mr. Bradrick. And myself, I also vote in favor. So, Michelle, you are seated as a voting member for tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
We thank you. And the next order of business would be to approve the minutes from the December 8th, 2020 regular meeting. I have a motion.
I think we need a motion.
I
I move we approve the minutes from the December meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
All right, I'll do it.
All right. We have a second. Discussion.
Just a housekeeping point. At the end, the motion to adjourn was made by Jeffrey Marcotte, who I guess was mysteriously substituted for me at the end of the meeting.
Kelleher.
So I guess
Oh, that's what you get for wearing a Jeffrey Markart suit. We all thought you were him.
yeah, those Marcottes, I tell you, I got to watch out for them.
All right. Any other issues with the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes with the one correction? Mr. Chamorro,
Aye.
Mr. Fortin,
Aye.
Mr. Kelleher,
Aye.
Mr. Bradrick. Okay, thank you. And Mrs. Waz.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, motion carries. All right, the next order of business is the public comment instructions. During the meeting, if anyone has a comment to make from the public, you can go to your chat bar and type the question in at any time. Otherwise, you can raise your hand during the portion of public comment, and we will address you. If you can't get us to notice you, I believe you can call in as well. Yeah, you can call in with the numbers that were provided. And also, if in fact you are not speaking, just to keep the audio quality a little better, if you could mute yourself, it would be appreciated. All right, so the next order of business would be the fiscal year 20 audit presentation by Mahoney and Sable. And who do we have?
I think Mike will be the one to start it off. Mike, you there?
I'm here.
Excellent.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Finance.
Good evening.
My name is Mike Van Deventer. I'm a partner at Mahoney Sable and ultimately responsible for overseeing the audit and issuing the reports on behalf of the firm. Also participating from our firm is Lauren Messina. She was the manager on the audit, and Carolina Swall, who was the senior associate on the audit. So we're happy to be here this evening to present the results of the town's fiscal year 2020 audit. As in the past, I have a presentation that I will go through. It'll cover the scope of work, the audit reports that were issued, provide some overall financial highlights. We'll include our required communications, and certainly to the extent anyone has any questions, I think the best way to probably handle it is at each section of the presentation, we'll pause and ask if there's any questions from any of the members of the board. And certainly we can answer any questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you.
So I am going to share my screen and share the presentation. And could everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. In terms of the overall scope of work, no real changes as far as the work was performed. We did an audit of the town's financial statements. We performed that audit in accordance with both the auditing standards issued by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, as well as the government auditing standards issued by the Government Accountability Office. In addition, based on the level of federal awards and state financial assistance that was expended by the town, we did perform both a federal and state single audit. The federal single audit was performed in accordance with the uniform administrative requirements, and the state single audit was performed in accordance with the State Single Audit Act. In addition, we also perform an agreed upon procedures on the end of school year reports that are required to be filed with the State of Connecticut Department of Education. In addition to those audit or test services, we do also perform some non-audit services for the town. We do assist in the preparation of the financial statements, the schedule of federal awards, the state financial assistance, and related notes. We also assist the town in converting the governmental fund financial statements to the government-wide financial statements. We do assist in the preparation of some non-budgetary trial balances for the school district. And ultimately, in order for our firm to be independent and be able to perform those services, the town is required to designate an individual to oversee that work and ultimately take responsibility for them. Karen Fitzpatrick and Janice Thurlow ultimately have accepted responsibility for those services, and we are deemed to be independent of the town. Any questions as far as the overall scope of work? I will turn it over to Lauren Messina, and she's going to cover the reports that were issued.
Okay. In connection with the audit, we issue multiple reports. The first report is on the report on the financial statements. This report includes an opinion that covers multiple opinion units or areas within the financial statements. These include your governmental activities, each major fund. These funds are the general fund and the Herbert W. Bowen Fund, and then the aggregate remaining fund information, which for the town of Woodstock consists of various special revenue, capital, permanent, private purpose trust, and agency funds. In the current year, we reported an unmodified or clean opinion on these opinion units. We also issue a report on compliance and on internal control over financial reporting. For fiscal year 2020, we did not report any material noncompliance of laws and regulations. In addition, we did not report any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over financial reporting. With regards to single audit, as Mike mentioned, this year the town met the threshold for a federal single audit. In connection with this, we issue a report on compliance and on internal control at the federal award level. For fiscal year 2020, the town expended approximately $888,000 in federal awards. The major program that was tested was the Special Education Cluster, or IDEA, and that program's total expenditures were approximately $356,000. We reported an unmodified or clean opinion on compliance, and we are not reporting any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over grant compliance. Next slide. For the state single audit, we issue a report on compliance on internal control at the state financial assistance level. For 2020, the town expended $5.985 million in total state award expenditures. And of this amount, approximately $676,000 was considered non-exempt and subject to our Town Aid Road was tested as a major program, and that program was at about $387,000. We issued an unmodified or clean opinion on compliance, and we are not reporting significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over compliance. For reports.
Lauren, before you move forward, I just want to,
Yes.
It sounds like the volume is kind of coming in and out. Does anybody else have that feedback or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we're getting
I'm
a little-
sorry.
That's okay. Any questions as far as the audit reports? Again, just to follow up on what Lauren had said, unmodified opinions on your financial statements and no instances of compliance, of non-compliance on your federal and state single audit major programs.
I could repeat if needed.
Does anyone have a question up until this point? Fred,
No,
Mr. Fortin,
I do not.
Mr. Kelleher,
I'm all set.
Mr. Bradrick?
Okay. So we can, we'll move forward. Lauren, I'm not sure if it's just your connection that kind of comes in and out.
Okay. I'll try to move closer to my computer. I'll do a couple sentences and then let me know how that sounds.
Yeah, actually, it's still cutting in and out. So I'll take it from here. Everyone can hear me okay?
yes.
All right. Apologize for the technical difficulties.
That's all right.
Thank you, Lauren.
Sorry.
Next section goes over your financial highlights. And again, from a financial perspective, we do include anything in here that I think would be of importance to the board. This first slide goes over your general fund budgetary highlights. Again, your original and final budget did provide for the use of fund balance in the amount of $735,532 to balance your overall budget. Your actual change in fund balance was a decrease of $93,486. So that did result in an overall favorable budgetary variance of $642,000. Again, plan to use $735,000 and you only used $93,000. Your overall revenues were approximately $636,000 more than budgeted, and that was a result of favorable property tax collections and state aid for education. Your overall expenditures were about $431,000 less than budgeted. Of that amount, $425,000 related to non-educational expenditures and was subsequently authorized to be transferred to your capital and non-reoccurring fund. This slide goes over your governmental funds on a GAAP basis. Again, this includes your general fund as well as all of your special revenue and capital project funds. Your overall ending fund balance totaled approximately $14 million. That was a decrease of about $1 million from the prior year. Of the $14 million, about $4.6 million is in your general fund. Again, that was a decrease of about $93,000 from the prior year. Of the $4.5 million that is in your general fund, approximately $3.4 million is considered unassigned, and that does represent approximately 13.8% or 1.7 months of your fiscal year 2021 budgetary expenditure appropriations. So again, no significant change in your overall unassigned fund balance as a percentage of your expenditures.
Mike,
Yes.
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention too, I had a note that the board's policy provides for an unassigned fund balance in the general fund of no less than 10% or more than 15%. That is within the threshold. I think last year we were a little higher, I think, but I just wanted to point that out. That's disclosed in the financial statements as well.
Okay. Of the 14 million, approximately 5.4 million is in the Herbert Bowen Fund. That was a decrease of about 782,000 from the prior year. Again, that decrease was attributed to current year unrealized losses on investments. As you are aware, those funds are restricted in terms of the securities that they're invested in. And again, there was an overall market loss on those investments for the year. Your other funds have a total fund balance of about 4 million, which was a decrease of about 204,000 from the prior year. Important to note that there were no identified fund balance deficits. And overall, the decrease was primarily due to authorized capital outlays, again, which were offset by transfers in from the general fund. The next slide goes over your government-wide financial statements. And again, the government-wide financial statement really looks at the town as an enterprise. It includes all of your capital assets as well as any related debt. Again, the focus on the government-wide financial statements is on your long-term liabilities. The town does report a positive unrestricted net position of approximately 5.4 million. And that really is attributed to the low levels of long-term bonded debt, as well as the low levels of the town's pension and other post-employment benefit liabilities. So the debt service represented approximately 2.2% of your fiscal year 2020 budget. And again, I would consider that to be kind of a low level of debt for a municipality. In terms of the Connecticut Municipal Employees Retirement System for which the town participates, the portion of the liability that's been allocated to the town as of June 30th, 2020 totaled approximately 2.4 million. That was a decrease of about 449,000 from the prior year. That plan is currently about 73% funded at the state level, and your overall contributions totaled approximately 200,000 for the fiscal year. The town also reports other post-employment benefit liabilities, and that does reflect the retiree health care benefits that are offered to eligible employees of the Board of Education. Again, state law does allow the retirees access to the Board of Education's healthcare plan that is provided to active employees. The actuarial determined liability for those benefits totaled approximately 266,000 as of year end. Again, the town funds that on a pay-as-you-go basis. So you have not established a trust, and nor do I think the liability is of significance to where the town would fund those liabilities. Any questions as far as the financial highlights? Again, a lot of information is included in the financial statements. Really try to communicate things that I think as board members you would be interested in.
Let me just run through the list here and we'll see if anybody has any questions. Mr. Chamar,
No,
Mr. Thornton,
Not so far, thank you.
Mr. Kelleher,
Not right now, thanks.
Mr. Bradrick. Bradrick? Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Mrs. Waz,
No questions.
Mrs. Perkins, Butler, Charlene, do you have any questions?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, Gary?
Nope, all set.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, Michael,
Who's Darth Vader?
Last section, required communications. And again, this section is really geared towards when the auditor runs into significant issues during the course of the audit. It would be communicated as part of our required communications. So the first item here talks about our responsibility under our auditing standards. Although we do assist in the preparation of the financial statements, again, they are the responsibility of management. All of the information included in the financial statements did come from the town. Again, it's our responsibility to perform our audit procedures and express our opinion on those financial statements. In terms of the plan, scope, and timing of the audit, I think this year we did end up performing a federal single audit. I don't think the town was required to have that in the prior year. So that was an additional piece of the audit this year. Again, no changes in the overall timing of the work that was originally agreed upon. I had actually mentioned to Karen that as of December 31st, I think 97 of the 169 municipalities in the state of Connecticut had filed their audit reports. So that's just over half of the municipalities were able to file on time. So we're happy that all reports were filed to the state by the December 31st deadline. In terms of significant audit findings, we do review your accounting policies and practices. We will always report the implementation of any new accounting standards. In response to the pandemic, the Governmental Accounting Standard Board did issue a standard on the postponement of the effective dates of certain authoritative guidance. That standard did result in the postponement of the effective date of most GASB standards by at least 1 year in response to the pandemic. So again, the town did not implement any new accounting standards this year. We do look at significant estimates and judgments in connection with the audit. Those are really involved in the preparation of the government-wide financial statements regarding estimated useful lives that are assigned to your capital assets, as well as discount rates that are utilized to determine any net pension and OPEB liabilities. Again, we did review those estimates and we did deem them to be reasonable and consistent with other municipalities. Happy to report that we did not have any significant difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We had no uncorrected misstatements. So again, during the course of performing the audit, if we identified an audit adjustment that management did not want to record, we're required to report that to you. We had no disagreements with management during the audit process. We did obtain a management representation letter, and no unique representations were required of management that we would be required to inform you of. And again, we were not aware of any other consultations with any other independent accountants as part of the audit process. So that ultimately concludes our required communications. Again, I know there's a lot of information that's included in both the financial statements as well as the federal and state single audit. Really tried to give you a high-level overview of the results of the audit, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions that anybody may have.
all right. Anyone have any questions? Fred,
No,
Dave?
No, I reviewed it in detail. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff?
All set.
Roy? Are you still with us there, Roy?
I'm here, but it doesn't mute properly.
Okay. No questions? Okay. Michelle?
No questions.
All right. Charlene?
No questions. Thank you.
No questions? Barry?
no, nothing from me.
All right. Very good. Well, we want to thank you all very much. I don't know if Karen has anything she'd like to add before we say goodnight, but
Nope, I just actually wanted to just make a point that it was, again, a pleasure working with Mike, Lauren, and Carolina during this. It was a little difficult this year, being everything remote, but we managed it in a timely manner. I think that, moving forward, it will get easier, I hope. There was a lot of struggles for Janice and I with all of these COVID regulations and executive orders and difficulties of that nature, but they helped us through everything. And I just, again, want to say thank you.
I too, Mike, want to say thank you. Karen and I worked very well with the board, with the auditors. And yes, it was a little cumbersome doing things virtually, but it worked out very well.
Thank you, Jan. All right, then I guess we're all set. We thank you once again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Great night now.
You too.
Too.
It's all done. There's no vote.
All right, well, next we'll move on to old business. One of the items that we have under old business, the first item is to approve the expenditure for land rights purchase that we had already approved and was already approved by the Board of Selectmen. But now it's come back because of the fact that we are not going to be holding a town meeting. We need to basically mimic their motion to make that approval under the executive orders. So basically what we're looking at is a motion to approve the expenditure in the amount not to exceed $65,000 as recommended by the Board of Selectmen from the Woodstock Agricultural Land Preservation and Land Acquisition Fund toward the joint purchase of land development rights to Maple Crest Farm under Executive Order 7S.7 and Executive Order 7CC-1. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I second
We
that.
have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? John, would you like to say anything before we take our vote, or? I mean, it's been approved already. We just have to make this official.
I'll thank you all in advance.
Okay.
That's a good way to have it, right? All right, if there is no discussion, then we will call the roll for a vote. Mr. Chimara,
Aye.
Mr. Fortin,
Aye.
Mr. Kelleher,
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Bradrick,
Aye.
Mrs. Waz,
Aye.
and I also vote aye, so it's unanimous. Very good. All right, the next order of business would be update on the state budget. Karen, do you have any information?
Well, on a good note, we received 192,000 in town aid roads, so that helps us tremendously. That actually hit our accounts today. As far as the state budget for our upcoming fiscal year 22 budget, I was not able to watch the governor. I think it was last week he was addressing, and I was unfortunately not able to follow that during my work time. I personally don't know what's going on at this point with the state. I know it's their biennial budget preparation. Hopefully we'll know more in February so we can move forward. But that's about all I really have on an update from the state.
Fred, have you heard anything?
No, not much of anything other than the general consensus that seems to be that municipal governments should receive the same as before in their grants, and possibly working to give them some additional funding to help offset COVID-19 costs. So it looks fairly positive in the sense of municipal aid this year.
One thing I want to mention is the town had qualified for some municipal CRF, which was some coronavirus relief funds. And both Janice and I had submitted a bunch of invoices to the state from March to June 30. Things that were also submitted to FEMA that were not approved through FEMA. And we were able to get approximately $28,000 in reimbursement for fiscal year ending June 30th. That was all taken into consideration before the financial statements. So that money went back, to expenditures that were not budgeted for due to coronavirus. And there is also some money that was left over. There was about $75 million earmarked for all of the municipalities. So there's a balance. It was given to each municipality on a population basis. So we currently received an additional 57,000. Out of that 57,000, the Board of Ed submitted about another a little over 28,000. We're still going through our end to gather all the documentation from July 1st to December 30th, so we can reimburse the town side. But I also just received something from Martin Heft from OPM stating that they're going to extend it until December 31st of 2021. So hopefully if we have any other expenditures between now and June 30th, we'll be able to reimburse ourselves for that as well. So Janice and I have been in close contact, keeping track of things that, were not part of the budget last year and this year, trying to get as much state aid as we possibly can.
Any questions? No? All right, then we'll move on to the next, which is update on the local bridge project. Want to hand,
Okay.
Jay is going to take care of that.
I have nothing or very little to report. A lot of the bridge projects, which you're well aware of, there's 3 or 4 bridges in town. We've been instructed to do something about it. Much of this is based on state grants, which again, money coming from the state, there's been delays. We have questions, we're not getting answers. We're pursuing this. That's all I can say is we're pursuing the steep grants to find out what money is available, when we're supposed to receive it, et cetera, et cetera. Other than that, the town has done what they have had to do as far as the bridges, as far as initial design, engineering, and this sort of thing. So we are where we should be. We're just waiting to hear on the steep grants. That's the status.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have one. Important. Isn't the steep grant the most expensive way to go about this process? I mean, I realize that there's some level of reimbursement, but it also requires us to do things that we may not need or feel that we need, excuse me.
In many cases, that's true, especially with engineering or more than one engineering study. One of the problems with this, Dave, is that we have already committed to the steep grant. Some of these go back a number of years. Because we're committed, one of the things we're looking into, and it came up in conversation today, is can we get out of that commitment? And these are things that, again, we're looking into. You are correct that in many cases, the steep grant is probably the most expensive. And it's a typical thing where you're offered free money, if you will, but things are not always what they appear. And that's about the only way I could express.
Yeah, matching grants and so forth.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Update on the town hall renovations. You going to take that one, Jay?
Yes, because we have no bearing on steep grants. This is something I can report on. Okay. We're at the final steps. Okay, it's been kind of a long haul. Within this week, we should have programming done on a keypad, which is outside, so that staff can use their access code, much like they do in the front of the building, to access. The doors would be locked so that if staff go out to meet with taxpayers, citizens out in the lobby and forget their fob, they can get a keypad to get back in, unlock the door. the same thing with a fob. The thing that we use on the outside of the door to gain access, those are all going to be wired this week. We should expect, and the final thing will be basically final paint. And so we'll be, once it's painted, we're done. We're out of the woods. Again, it was a good call at the point that we needed it with COVID. People coming into town hall have responded very well. The services that they need through the town clerk and tax collector has worked out very well. On occasions, people have had to come in to consult. I will meet in a conference room with them one-on-one. We wear masks. We use plexiglass shields, this sort of thing. So I think because of COVID, which is why this all started, it's worked out very, very well at protecting the staff from the town hall. But more importantly, I think it's really added to the security of this building, which I know was expressed in past years. So we're in very good shape with that. That's it, sir.
Questions? None?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
As I recall, this started back in May when the town was looking to figure out ways for people to access the tax collector and the town clerk and put in the windows and all of that. And we had a budget of $5,000 allocated for this project. Are we still on that same budget?
Yeah.
Okay. So unfortunately, it is costing more than that amount. But speaking with our auditors, some of the things that we were reimbursed for from FEMA, which was about $3,900, we were told we could use that to finish the project. So it really we shouldn't have to come back to the board for additional funding. This extra $3,900 in reimbursement from FEMA should cover the balance, we're hoping.
Related to COVID.
And
So
because
what was the total cost for the project?
we don't have the final bills yet, so as soon as I get that, I will let everybody know, but I'm assuming it's gonna be about 10,000, right around there. Maybe a little less. There was some extra things we needed to do because we didn't, after speaking with the fire marshal, we had to end up putting in extra breakaways for the doors because, people
Crash
have
bars. Yeah.
access to get out of the building. So there was a few things that back in May we didn't know. And now we found out differently after having the fire marshal come in. And that also entailed a little bit more security work as well. Now we
Okay,
have.
thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to the next item, which is the Board of Ed non-lapsing transfer request. So we have a request here that they finalize the 2019-20 budget expenditures resulting in a balance of $5,978.49. And they would like to transfer that amount to their non-lapsing account. And this was approved by the Board of Education at their December 10th meeting. Do I hear a motion to allow them to approve, to transfer that money to the non-lapsing account?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
All right.
Brad.
We have a second. Any discussion? No one?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Hearing no one, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Chamorro,
aye.
Mr. Fortin,
Aye.
Mr. Kelleher,
Aye.
Mr. Braderick,
Aye.
and Mrs. Waz.
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so that carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, under new business, item 8. First item is,
F, review your fund balance policy.
oh, I'm sorry, I skipped item F. So we'll back up to old business, review of the fund balance policy.
It was tabled last.
We tabled this at our last meeting. Basically,
Pending.
we did it pending the audit, but we generally review it at least every 2 years. But if something should arise in the meantime, it can be brought up at any time, the way it's set up right now. And you all should have received a copy of that. So if anyone has any questions, Karen could probably help out with that, but the current fund balance policy that we have was approved originally February 10th of 2015, and it was updated or revised again on the 14th of January last year. So there really hasn't been a long period of time since any changes were made, and the only changes that were made at that time was the maximum percentage rate. We had quite a bit of discussion as to whether or not that should be a maximum, or we should just set that as a goal and allow anything above that to be sent over to the capital non-recurring. But again, that would be brought up annually. So is there anyone that has any wishes to make any changes at this time to the policy, or shall we continue as it is written?
I don't have anything I want to change. It's just on clarification at the top of page 3, second paragraph. It says, in the event the fund balance is greater than 50%, the excess may, and then it continues on. Does that mean if it's below 15%, it is to just be left alone?
Lost you there, you cut out.
My question is, if the fund balance is below 15%, is the policy intended to mean it's just to be left alone?
No, that's something that can always be voted on. But it's basically what it's saying is that we, yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what I assumed it meant. It's just a little ambiguous. It says if it's greater than 15%, we may use it.
We do have the ability to use it anywhere in that range.
Okay.
But basically what we're looking at is we don't want to have too much sitting there.
Right, no, I get that. I'm just making sure I understand the intent.
So it's kind of a reminder to roll that over if we have it.
Okay.
And otherwise, we would just use it as judiciously as possible. Does that answer your question, Jeff? Anyone else?
No, Mike, I would just make a motion that we continue, make no changes to the current fund balance policy.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
You're right. We have a motion. We have a second. Do we have any more discussion?
Just to be difficult, do we need a motion to do nothing?
Well, it's just to continue the balance policy, just to roll it over.
Okay.
Just make it official, so.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Chamorro, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Fortin,
Aye.
Mr. Kelleher,
Aye.
Mr. Bradrick,
Aye.
Mrs. Waz,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So that motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we can move on to new business. All right, so we have a request for a town hall emergency expenditure. And we'll turn that over to our first selectman.
I will take that. We have some issues with the heating system in the town hall. We noticed some water leaking in the basement. Shop vacs didn't solve the problem. So we've had a number of plumbers and others come in to look at it. Right now, I would ask the board to table it. And the reason is we're trying to get additional quotes because we want to make sure that we do it right. What it appears that we're going to be doing is doing a temporary fix until after the heating season, and then come in with a permanent fix. So that's basically where we're at, but I'm just going to ask you if you'd be kind enough to table it for now. Because again, we want to get additional quotes to get the best opportunity for the town as opposed to the quickest solution. Okay, so we're looking at the money, basically. So we're going to table it for now. We'll get additional quotes and I'll be back in touch with you on exactly what's going to be happening and when. That's about it.
All right, so,
Question,
go ahead.
Jay, the temporary fix, will you be able to do that our existing budget?
We don't know yet.
We don't know. And again, we don't know how temporary it is, Fred, because we have outsiders. It's beyond us, beyond our folks to be able to do. So we have folks coming in to look at it. And then that's what we're looking for is the most cost efficient way of doing it. And the reason for the temporary is rather than having a basement full of water, we want to solve the problem. But the long-term fix would have to be after the heating system season is over,
yeah,
where we're not dependent on it. So that's about where we're at now.
We didn't even get a quote for the temporary fixture.
Okay,
Yeah, well, yeah, not to interrupt you, but that's part of the other thing that Karen just reminded me. Even the temporary fix, we don't have a firm quote on that. We've gotten some quotes, but we don't like them, so we're going out for additional quotes.
do you have, Jay, a ballpark on any of this? Obviously, we're not going to hold you anything, just range.
The long term, the permanent would probably be 10 to 15,000.
Okay,
But again, and that's one of the reasons that we're tabling it, because we don't have firm numbers. We really want to be sure of what we're doing with both the temporary and the permanent.
okay, thanks.
Anyone else? All right, so we'll table that until they have additional
Okay.
information.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, the next order of business would be to approve the Mahoney Sable audit agreement. Because of everything that's going on right now, and there are some issues with many of the accounting firms statewide due to the COVID and the fact that, as Mike said, there's only 97 towns out of 169 that were able to even complete theirs within the normal time frame. We asked for a quote from Mahoney Sable for another 2 years. And basically what they're looking for the 21 budget would be a fee of $42,500 and a slight increase for the 2022 year of a total of $44,000. What did we pay this year, Karen?
Off the top of my head, it was somewhere right around 36 or 38, if I'm not mistaken. I did notice on my end for what we're responsible for, only increased about 900. I think the Board of Eds went up a little bit higher. But other than that, it is not a substantial increase at all. I think it's well deserved. Last year, we actually saved about 3,400 because our federal audit, we didn't have to do it. We didn't have enough federal funds in order to file that. And that was about 3,400 and they went up to 3,750. So I don't see a substantial difference at this time. I think for the amount of services that they have provided Janice and I over this past year with all this additional accounting for COVID and things of that nature, the continuous emails back and forth for their assistance was well warrants. They have not increased it much over the last several years.
Karen,
Yes,
what's the, what was the total fee for FY 2020?
I think altogether, off the top of my head, I don't have it with me. I can run to my
It was 38.
office. And I think it was around 38,000 between us and the Board of Ed, somewhere right around there.
So that's
Okay.
a
About 40
$4,500 increase for next year's audit.
Yeah, about 40, yes, about 4,500. Keep in mind, over the last several years, they didn't really increase it at all. Or there was like 2 years it stayed pretty consistent.
Karen,
Yes,
how many audit cycles have they done for us? How many years?
I believe fiscal year 16, 17 was their first. So this would be their 6th or 7th year. So that's
Okay.
well under 10 years.
Thank you.
The norm, 5 to 10 years.
Any other
I
questions?
don't have any problem with this, but I think I would like to go on record that after this 2-year extension, that we go back out for an RFP and take a look at it. Doesn't mean we have to change, but I think it's always a good thing to look at other proposals, et cetera. So I like to go on record that after so for the 23 year, that we start looking at RFPs to review audit proposals.
We had actually discussed that, Karen and I, to do that last year. And with the COVID and everything, it was
Yeah.
decided that was not a good time to do it.
And I concur, and that's why, I'm like to go on record for letting it go for 2 more years, but otherwise I would be uncomfortable with it.
I just, so you realize what I've already done is I've gone, I'm a member of GFOA, which is Government Finance Office Association, and we have a network of people that kind of, piggyback off of each other with towns for different bids and things. So I've already actually printed out a couple RFPs that towns were going through this year, looking for audit services that we could potentially look over and use as a guideline for the next time we go for go out for an RFP.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have a question?
I think, Mike, I just want to make a comment that it's also a good practice, not just to, put out RFP for the financial part, is to change your audit firm every decade or so and not stick with the same people.
Yeah, I agree. And that's something that we, I know since I've been a member of this board, we've always looked at that on a fairly regular basis. So if no one has any other comments, do we have a motion?
I have a comment, if I may.
Go ahead.
This is 2 years. Is there some reason we can't do 1 year?
Well, the way we probably could, but that's not the way the offer was written. And I'm kind of thinking it's going to be at least 2 years before everything gets straightened out here with this COVID stuff. And with all the things that we have going on right now, there'll be some changes down the road here with the projects that we have coming up, bridge projects and things of that nature that they're already on board with. So it would be, make things a lot easier if they just continued to track that and kept us, abreast of all the changes that are being made. Like I said, the changes that were to come about were suspended for this year because of COVID-19. So we don't even know what those are yet. But I mean, nothing says we can't, but I think that it would be in our best interest to cover ourselves with the 2 years. Karen?
Yep. I just want to, although Lauren and Mike and Carolina were here with us tonight presenting this, I do want you to all be aware that whenever they do an audit, they send out new people each year. So it's not the same people auditing our books year after year. Every year they send at least 2 or 3 new staff members to work with us. They just finalize everything. So I just want to point that out, that it's not just those 3 continuously working. They're the ones that are the management. So they are the ones that prepare the statements after all of the information is compiled, but they do have several different auditors that come out each year, just to kind of keep it changed up. So it's not like the same person's looking at the same thing over and over.
Right. I think given the COVID thing and kind of there's a bit of unsettledness in the auditing the CPA firms in Connecticut right now with mergers and other things, that it might be a better market condition in a couple of years than it would be next year.
Yep, I agree.
Any other comments? All right, do we have a motion to approve the agreement with Mahoney Sable for an additional 2 years?
So moved.
All right,
Tomorrow.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. Any further discussion? All right. Hearing none. Mr. Chamara, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Fortin?
Aye.
Mr. Kelleher?
Aye.
Mr. Bradrick?
Aye.
And Mrs. Waz?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. So the motion carries. So we will continue our services with Mahoney and Sable for the next 2 years. All right. Next order of business is public comment. Do we have any people that typed in? Yeah. Okay. All right. We have nobody that typed in on the chat. So we have Dave. Go ahead, Mr. Richardson.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. I have 3 questions that actually tied back probably more to the audit than anything, but there wasn't an opportunity there. First one is the emergency tree removal expenses. Are those recorded as capital expenses or as emergency expenses?
Karen?
Well, I would have to go back and double check with the auditor. I'd have to reread some of these, so I can get that information. Dave, I'll get that information from you. I'll email it to you, because I'd have to go back and look through these, and I'm not sure how they're capitalizing them.
Yeah, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, so let me, I will email the auditors tomorrow. And find out for sure, and I will email you that answer as well as the rest of the board.
Okay, and at the same time, how are they going to depreciate that? If that's a capital expense, then there has to be a plan for recording it on the balance sheet and for depreciating it. Which, if it's an expense, emergency expense, then it's just gone.
Right. So I think I don't want to speak on behalf of the auditors, but I'm going to refer it to a similar situation when we are paying for the roofs over at the academy. It is a department of the town, and those funds can be used, but they don't capitalize it. It's just recognized as a Board of Ed expense. So I would think that it would fall similar to that, but I'm going to define that for you, and I will reach out to them tomorrow. Because
Okay, well,
we don't capitalize that for the school. It's just an additional Board of Ed expenditure, but we are able to use those funds for that specific purpose.
okay, so you actually, I think you just might have answered my second question, which was the tuition expense. Because we had 212,000 and now we're gonna have, a total of 400,000. And so what you're basically saying is it's being treated as an expense, not a capital.
So-
Because,
Well, you know what? If you go back to last year with what we received information from our attorney and from the auditors. And the auditors do not capitalize or depreciate that because it's not our actual building, but the investment is because it's a department in a school within the town. So it's part of a department that functions as a specific purpose. So in last year's financial statements, they recorded it as a Board of Ed expenditure. So there's no capitalizing and then there's no depreciation. Because it's money that can be used under the guidelines of having, a statute account, which is CNR. And going back to last year, that's exactly what they wrote. They did not capitalize it. It's an additional expenditure. I know you're calling it tuition. It was proposed to the town as a capital project. And that's how we presented it to the attorney. So I do not believe that is capitalized or depreciated as well.
okay, so it's really an expense.
Correct.
They are expenses qualify us to use CNR funds, yes.
Now, and that would show up in the education expense line in the audit. I think it's 21 million or something like that.
I believe so, yep.
Okay. My last question, and thank you for providing me the information on $150,000.
You're welcome.
This is a simple yes or no question. Is the $150,000 included in the $18,634,522 as is listed on page 63?
Let me look. So I see the 18,645.01 and the total expenditures. That I would have to clarify with the board. I do know that on another page, it's specific, I don't have it in front of me, it specifically stated the 150,000 expenditure. Trying to find the page that we're
It's on page
down.
22. It shows the transfer out.
Yep.
And then 18 and 39 show the funds going into the general fund.
And
What
then
the
on
question is it
23,
included? Is it included in the 18,634,522?
I will ask the auditors just to clarify. I don't want to answer that without having clarification.
Okay, that was it.
I will, that's number 2, and I will have an answer for you.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Anything else? David?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, thank you.
I mean, unless Janice, do you know?
That would be like an in and out because the journal entry would have taken the $150,000 out of that and put it into the,
The Fund 51.
right.
Dave, I will clarify that for you just to make sure.
Any other public comments?
I said, okay.
Okay,
The thing is if it's not in the 18,634,000, then the question is where did that expense go? And what was the total actual expenditures for the Board of Education? Operating expenses. So that's the issue behind the question. So thank you.
All right. Mr. Schultz?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Just going forward, now that this isn't a 2-year expense, the tuition at the school, are you going to be pulling out what you call capital this coming years, and basically it's the way you walk the budget around Prop 46.
That hasn't been even discussed yet at this time.
I can.
Karen would like to,
Hi, Preston. So basically, this was a question that I personally asked our auditors. I'm under the impression that unless it's presented to us as a specific capital project. So for instance, they can't come back to us and say, oh, we have to put in the roof again for the same project. But if it's just a basic assessment, that is not a specific project. If it's just an assessment that they're going to use for future projects, I don't think we'll be able to use that funding. I will again clarify that with the attorney and with the auditors if that should get presented to us. But I do know that if they come to us with a specific project and bring it to us as a capital project, such as a roof, then I believe we would be able to utilize the funds as we have in the past. But again, that would be under the advisement of the auditor and the attorney.
Well, it just seems a little, it's a real stretch. It seems like it's Enron accounting when you can take somebody else's asset and capitalize it as an asset in your account. But that's what you because you said it's a capital and they discussed it as a roof. We don't really know that our money was actually physically used for the roof. Could have been the tanks, could have been whatever they did, because they don't assign the dollars.
Well, it was presented to the town as a capital project to do the roofs and the tanks. I'd like to believe, that the project that they presented to us was the project they used the funding for. I, would like to believe that. I wouldn't think that they would come to us with misrepresentation. But unfortunately, with CNR funds, if it's a department within the town and serves as a public, provides a public service, then those funds can be used to pay for those services. At least that's what I interpreted from our attorney's letter.
Yep. Well, the town attorney is not the citizen's attorney, it's the elected official's attorney. So they represent you to keep you out of trouble rather than keeping the taxpayers, protected, because that should have been voted on by the town. It shouldn't have been circumvented around Prop 46.
It actually was voted at a town meeting and a referendum.
Yeah. But it was around the 46 limits of spending.
anyone else? Megan, go ahead.
I just have a quick question for, I guess, Mike, you and Jay. I know we had spoken very briefly about whether there will be having a tri-board meeting during this fiscal year. And if that's something that we can possibly pull together, the only thing I ask is that the boards are able to meet together before we get too far along in the budget process for 21-22.
Well, I will give you my take on it, and then Jay can jump in. But what I'm kind of looking for right now is if we could see where we are on our tax base for this year. And also hoping that maybe you guys could put together some numbers for various scenarios, at least two, one being going back to full in-house schooling, and the other to continue the remote schooling, so we have some idea of what type of budget we're looking at here, so we know what we're working with. But like I say, we're also hoping to get some numbers from the town assessor as to where we are as far as our tax base. Jay?
Megan, almost apologies, because both Mike and I have gotten your emails and I understand your concern. Similar to Mike, we don't know where we're at. And the other thing is COVID has created such problems, as you know, with all three schools. yes, it's important that all three of us get down, the three boards meet. However, we're in the middle of major budget things here at the town hall, and that's taking up all of our time. So I guess I'm not trying to blow you off. I understand the importance of this, but again, this year is so different than past years with issues of tax base, issues of COVID. Our lives are on Zoom, you know, this sort of thing. So I agree with you. Yes, we do need to have a meeting, but I'm also, I understand where Mike's coming from too, that we have a lot of unanswered issues, not questions, but issues that really kind of have to be resolved before the three groups can get together and come up with a clear path forward.
Do you have any recommendations moving forward with the budget of where we should be to give us an idea of how to move forward at all?
Not without some idea as to what we've got. I mean, where we're going with the tax base. That's our basic thing. Until we hear from the assessor.
She may have something by January 20th, she said, before she certifies it, but she's not sure.
Yeah, everything's up in the air.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
The sooner the better.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah, we will
Yeah.
definitely try to do something. I mean, even if we just have a meeting where a few of us just get together so we can go over the basics of it and maybe get some more information so we can spread it from there. And then if necessary, get together with all three boards as a total, but possibly yourself, Janice, Superintendent, Karen, myself and Jay could maybe get together and get something started and then go from there.
I'm happy to. The important thing for me is, like the town hall and what Jay described and what you have talked about. Certainly the schools are going through it, that in spades. So before we get too far along in our planning for the next fiscal year, I just wanted to make sure we had a solid base, kind of knew where each board was coming from, our own personal challenges that we're trying to handle, because in the end, it's all going to come together. So if we can have that information up front and be able to have those conversations, I think it would just benefit us in the long run.
I think as a follow-up, Megan, and I understand your concerns, as I mentioned, but I think, as Mike said, I think the best we can do is maybe some sort of preliminary meetings just to kind of feel each other out, because I think we're all in the same boat. We're all facing the same challenges, but I understand your concerns. And I think maybe, if we get together as a unofficial, if you will, preliminary meeting, just to talk about where we're at, where we'd like to be, and what are the challenges that we're going to have to work through in the next year.
Happy to. Just let me know the day and the time. And, certainly can do that and then bring the information back to the boards.
Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Any other public comments? You have anything there, Kristen? Okay. All right, now we'll move on to other from the board. Anybody from the board have anything else to add?
Hey, Mike, I didn't, but I was just listening to the whole conversation, and it sounds to me like what we're talking about is having a private illegal meeting. Why wouldn't we just have a Zoom meeting, tri-board meeting, even if it means we don't know the answers?
It's not an illegal meeting.
Well, it wouldn't really be a meeting, David, just kind of a discussion to say where, in other words, express what your issues are or what you think they might be, something to work with or towards, or what are we really looking for in a meeting to have a tri-board meeting. What do we expect to accomplish?
Well, I think that we've got precedent in what we hope to accomplish, which is to relay whatever information we have and for the Board of Ed to relay to us what they think their needs and concerns are. I don't know that we, what we need to do beyond that. I mean, if a half a dozen of us meet in the hallway to talk about it, it would be an illegal meeting. So, I mean, we're talking about Zoom here. Nobody has to be in the same place, and everybody can have all the same information. And I don't have to be right. I'm just bringing it up.
I
I'm throwing
understand.
it up on the table.
But the only thing is, the only argument I would have with that is the precedent. Because the precedent that was set with the tri-board meeting didn't take place in these times with everything that's going on right now. And to try to get everybody together to do this, like we're doing right now, which I have to be perfectly honest with you, I am not very comfortable with doing Zoom meetings at all. But we can't have full board meetings until this whole virus thing is over with. I mean, we're looking at something totally different. So at least if we could sit down, get together on the outside of the three boards as a whole, where we're talking 22, 23 people, if we could just get a couple of people together, set down some ground rules and some ideas of what it is we're going to discuss, then put together a Zoom meeting with a purpose and a direction, I just think it would be that much easier. I know Jay wants to add something.
Dave, with your concerns, and I understand, and I certainly didn't want to make it sound like an illegal meeting. However, the issue is, none of the three boards have answers. We have concerns, we have worries. We don't know what's going to be happening in the next year. We don't know what's going to be happening with COVID, with issues around students going to school and this sort of thing. And I guess my thing is, by saying preliminary, I think much like what Mike said, if we get representatives from the three boards to just talk, there are no answers. So I don't think it comes across as a meeting. I think if we could just communicate our concerns and then perhaps find out how people may have suggestions on how those concerns can be addressed. But again, my bottom line is there are no firm answers, nor do I expect to have any in the near future.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Go ahead, Sean.
Just a thought. Excuse me, I'm a little hoarse. It is a very complicated year, and it's not going to get any easier, likely, but we still have to come up with a budget. So it would seem to me that each of the three boards could come up with a list of their priorities, their best take on how they're going to handle their work for the year. We could maybe get some estimates from the assessor, even if they're not final numbers. But maybe even before we're talking those specific numbers, if we could at least get a summary from each of the board about where they're headed, what things are priorities, and what's the most immediate needs, that would be helpful. And then maybe to have everyone meet as in a giant Zoom meeting to hear this information all at the same time would aid us in building the budget going forward. Just a thought.
Actually, what that is basically going back to the way it was prior to our having a tri-board meeting, where the Board of Ed would develop their budget and bring it to us. The town would develop their budget, bring it to us. We discuss each of those individually, make some recommendations at that time at our meeting, and then we would have the next meeting would be the combination of both budgets. And then we would come down with a number and say, well, this is where you got to cut it one way or the other. But as of right now, the biggest keys to this whole thing, as I said, is where we're going with the tax base, what increase or flatline or decrease there may be in revenues on the taxes. And then we also have to look at those things which are allowable under Proposition 46 to calculate that. And the only way we can do that is for the school board to have an idea of what their costs are going to be for transportation, special education. So this is why I say we need at least 2 scenarios from them. One under a normal circumstances and one under a totally remote circumstance, or even a third as a hybrid, so that we have some idea of what kind of numbers we're looking at. If I was to say that the taxes next year, based on the same number that we're using this year for a mill rate, we're going to come in at $17,000 higher than they were last year, then I know I have $17,000 more to spend. If they're going to come in $17,000 less than they did last year, then we either have $17,000 less to spend, or we're looking at an increase in the mill rate or cutting spending somewhere else. This is, you know, these are things that it happens every year, but this year is just tougher than normal. And so, like I say, people have got to do some homework first before we can put this together, before we can even discuss it, because we have no idea.
My comment.
Karen, go ahead.
So I'd like to just comment on the Board of Selectmen side of the whole budget process, because Jay and I are really speaking daily. Hourly. A couple of our struggles would be, number one, we have 2 unions that may need negotiations this year. Last year, we were supposed to negotiate at the onset of COVID, which prevented in-person meetings with union representatives. So we did some memo of understandings, but this year we really have to consider that's a big part of our budget, is where we're going to go on contractual services. We have a state who has not presented to us any information on their biennial budget. And I believe another big problem is the Board of Ed having to contract the services with the academy. We don't know where that's going to bring us. So this, to me, is probably one of the most difficult years to budget, because we have several avenues that we have to look into. I can just tell you that speaking with Jay daily, we both just shake our heads and we don't know what's going to happen, where it's going to come from, how we're going to manage the changes that this town is facing. You know, whether we have a tri-board meeting or not, I don't even think the Board of Finance can direct us which way to go, because we really don't know even what the state's going to do. I know Fred mentioned that potentially we could get exactly what we got last year. Not enough. It's just not enough for this budget. So I think that maybe a couple of us just need to brainstorm some kind of a plan, whether it's a no increase this year, or something of that nature. You know, I mean, we're looking at things, and maybe this could be a year where there is no increase. You know, over the last couple of years, we've had increases on both ends. We were able to keep our mill rate stable for the past 3 years by, you know, dipping into our general fund, which to me gives back to the public. But I think that this year is going to be a big struggle. And I honestly can tell you that until we know more from the state, and if we're going to be going into any kind of union negotiations, that's going to be a big portion of our budget. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of factors this year that were kind of delayed due to COVID last year that we're facing.
Anyone else? No? All right. Well, we'll give it some more thought. Megan, you keep it in mind, and we will do the same thing, and we'll see where we can go from here. But as I say, any possible input that we could get, you know, on your behalf, on behalf of the town, as to what we're looking for ahead of time, it definitely would be a big help, so that we're not in the month of March all sitting there scratching our heads saying, well, now what do we do? At least if we had a plan to some direction to head in, it would be certainly be helpful. So that's all we can do is look at that. Anything else? Okay, next is correspondence and announcements. The only announcement I have is that as of right now, our next scheduled meeting is February the 9th, 7 p.m. So we'll see you all here again, hopefully. And that is all I have. So an adjournment is in order. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Hey.
Okay, good night. Thank you very much. Everybody be safe.